Ladies and gentlemen, the month of October is filled with a bevy of horror films, mainly because of Halloween at the end of the month. But October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And there's a horror film out for that too, if you'll watch it. It's called Boobs, The War on Women's Breasts. And it really details where the medical world is on detection of breast cancer, how there are alternative measures which generally have better results, and how treatment can actually start way before you feel that lump. It's an interesting and fascinating documentary, and tonight I'll be speaking with the director of that documentary. Our cinematic class is about to begin, and your professor is in. Greetings, salutations, and other sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies. And it is truth that we want to spread out tonight. As you know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So it's kind of apropos that a very a cutting documentary has been released, and it's called Boobs, The War on Women's Breasts. And I'm very happy to have with me tonight the director of that documentary. Please help me welcome Megan Smith. Megan not only put together this documentary, but she also has done extensive work in the study of Lyme disease, which, if you've been following the news reports recently, Lyme disease is supposed to be reaching epic proportions this year for some reason. So that certainly is in there. She has been a screenwriter for over 13 years, and she has also worked on Capitol Hill as a lobbyist in renewable energy. And also joining us is Joe Massino. Joe Massino is one of our go-to nutritional health experts. He has gained national recognition for his work with Nutritional Frontiers, a major company in providing health supplements. And he's probably best well known here in the Pittsburgh area for his work with the Weiner Wellness Center, which is very, very popular, especially their Weiner Wellness Weeks, which draw hundreds and thousands of people to them. So folks, both of you, welcome to the show. I'm very happy that you're here. Megan, let me start with you. Your documentary actually started out as a short film, and now it's being released this month as a full-length documentary. What were the motivations behind taking it from a short documentary into a full-length documentary?
So my husband passed of cancer 11 years ago, lung cancer, and I had 3 girlfriends die in as many years after their cancer returned after 10 years, 15 years, and even 30 years. And I was really upset about that, and I decided to put all of my background of, I won't tell you how many years, and I have a master's in science. I worked on the Hill. I'm an investigative journalist, and I was writing screenplays. So I thought, you know, really, I just need a cinematographer, and I can become a documentary filmmaker. I bought the books; they're behind me, and we went on the road. And I came up with. I was actually halfway through editing. My first was supposed to be my first film called A New Standard of Care on Alternative Cancer Therapies. But I noticed that 10 minutes of my 90-minute film was on mammography. And I said, you know what, this would make a great short. I'm just going to take a little sidebar here. So I made it into a 30-minute short, put it into the film festivals. Cinema Libre Studio out of LA, the distributor, saw it and said, we'd love to make this into a feature, and signed me. And so I said, okay. So I stopped the other film and I made this into my first film. So the other one's still pending.
Yeah, I believe you're planning what, a 2021 release for the.
Yeah, gonna try.
And
I'm gonna just go with this because this might catch on. People are starting to get really excited about it.
Gotcha. Now, before I bring Joe into this, I want to talk about the mammogram. Obviously, I don't have one. I've never gotten one. But from people that I've talked to that have had one, this does not sound like a very nice premise. They kind of squish things and then radiate them and stuff like that. So, Megan, your documentary puts out a couple of, well, I guess they're beyond theories now. I guess there's a lot of proof to back them up that actually getting the mammogram could be exceptionally harmful. Could you detail for us a little bit of what goes on in that process that actually can end up promoting breast cancer rather than preventing?
Right. So everything in my film is documented. It's in the medical literature, and I actually put the literature right there in the film. So if doctors want to look into what I'm talking about and see how it's backed up with the literature, there's two things. It compresses the breast, and that right there causes inflammation. So there's a lot of speculation that, this might not be such a great idea, especially if a woman has a tumor or she's gotten a biopsy. Think about putting a hole in something and then squishing it. So there's speculation that might spread the cancer. That's one reason. But the radiation amount, that was really surprising to me, because doctors always say it's low radiation. It's not a high dosage. Well, then when I talked to a Columbia University doc, I said, hey, what's going on with these two different measurements for radiation? And he said, well, I don't know why they even talk about that one, because that's the scattered radiation across your body. That's not the absorbed dose going into your breast, which can be much, 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 much higher. And that's the one that can induce cancer years later. That's the amount that we need to be talking about. Radiologists aren't talking about it, and gynecologists aren't talking about it. And I believe it's because they don't really know. They don't study that. Radiologists study how to read a film. It's the radiation physicists who know about this, and they're not talking about it. So mom's the word, and I said, well, I'm going to blow the whistle on this one, because this is, I've had a number of mammograms, and I'm not going to have one now.
So the radiation that a woman gets from having a mammogram, that doesn't disperse and leave the body? You're saying it kind of accumulates in there?
It accumulates. Radiation accumulates in your body. And women with large breasts or dense breasts, they're really upping the radiation on those women to be able to see through the white tissue. They have to be able to radiate it further to differentiate between a cancer and the white tissue, especially in the dense breasts. So those women are really getting pulverized.
Okay, I want to talk about the dense breast a little bit later, but I want to bring Joe into this because, for a number of years, Joe had been talking to me about this technique called thermography, I'm sorry. And, when he talked to me about it, it made sense to me. But it's obviously not very well spread or used very extensively. So, Joe, let's bring you in on this, since you've beaten my ears many times on this subject, and explain to me why thermography might be a hell of a lot better than going with the mammogram.
Well, they covered it very well in the documentary, and I was very happy to see that, because it measures inflammation, as Megan said. Thermography measures inflammation in the body through an infrared camera, so it's non-invasive, and it can be used throughout the whole body. It can be used from head to toe, but using it in this way as either an alternative to a mammogram or as an adjunct to other procedures. And as they said so well in the documentary, you're looking at 8 to 10 years prior to the development of a tumor or any type of mass through thermography, because the inflammation is the starting point. It's the starting point. And radiation, as you said, Megan, I love what you just said, because radiation, especially, and compression, and then the biopsy, inflammation, anytime there is destruction to a tissue, inflammation results. That destruction to a tissue could be chemical, it could be physical, it could be, invisible in the form of EMF rays. But the bottom line is any destruction to the tissue is causing inflammation. So yeah, you're compounding the issue every time you compress and radiate the breast. And then thermography will show you levels and degrees, as we saw in the documentary, which I thought was done really, really well. And one thing I want to add to this, just before we go into anything else, a nutrient that I think is overlooked is iodine. It's so important because there's two places in the body where iodine is stored, the thyroid gland and breast tissue. And it's the second highest concentration in the body in breast tissue. If that iodine level is low, and the thyroid gland is your body's protection against radiation. So you should be supplementing with iodine prior to any type of x-ray, prior to flying on a plane, any of these things that produce radiation. And that gets overlooked as well. So I thought that the starting point with thermography, excellent. It should be the starting point, not once something has already happened.
Now, this iodine thing that you brought up, wow. If you, obviously you don't want to over take any type of supplement, but is there a degree of it that you should take for the age bracket you're in? And is it something that can prevent the start of the breast cancer? Or if you already have it, can it lessen it?
It's part of your body's natural immune system functionality. So we don't like to use the word, treat or cure or anything like that. But what we want to do is enhance the body's ability to function properly. Now, you got about 6 to 7 milligrams of iodine used up and stored in the thyroid gland, another 6 or 7 milligrams in breast tissue. And then every cell in your body still requires iodine as well. We don't get it from our diet anymore, Fiore. It's one of those food deficiencies. Iodine used to be in bread goods, all baked goods. Up till about 40 years ago, they substituted bromide for it. So it created a deficiency in our diet. And that deficiency then, it just so happens that, these numbers go up the same time the deficiency takes place in our diet. So yes, you need 12, 13 milligrams of iodine a day just to keep things in balance, in homeostasis.
Now, Megan, one of the things that came out in the documentary, which I thought was kind of unnerving, especially if you're a woman, is that it states that once you feel a lump in the breast, pretty much damage is already done, and that you're on your way to having some serious problems, that it actually takes anywhere from 2 to 8 years before you feel that lump, that the cancer is growing in the breast. Did I get all that right as far as the numbers are concerned?
If it's a slow growing tumor. So some cancers are estrogen driven, and those are usually faster growing tumors. But if it's a slow growing, which most of them are, then it can take up to 2 to 10 years to actually be able to palpate it or whatever and find it on a mammogram or ultrasound or MRI. So,
okay, so if this stuff is actually going on in the breast and something like a mammogram won't pick it up because it's too small, you're recommending that mammograms go the way of the dinosaur, and that a combination of the thermography and the ultrasound would be a better thing. Could you explain how you presented that in your film?
Right. So because of the insurance schedule right now, you have to get a mammogram, even if you have really dense breasts, which 50% of women are in the upper echelon of dense breast tissue. They still have to get a mammogram before they have an ultrasound. And for them, the mammogram is not such a great tool. So we should be flipping this on its head and having the ultrasound be the primary screening tool and have the mammography be a diagnostic tool. And right now it's totally opposite. And then thermogram should be done just across the board because it's a great preventative tool, because it's picking up that inflammation. Once a solid tumor forms, it's really hard to break down that tumor. That's why medicine, conventional, is really good with blood cancers, because those aren't solid tumors, but they have a heck of a time trying to cure a solid tumor. And so we need to pick it up before it's a solid tumor. Very important.
Okay, now in your research, had you found out anything about what Joe had mentioned about this iodine thing?
I actually had talked to a doctor, he's in my film, Ben Johnson, mentioned the iodine problem, and I'm going to put that in my next film. So, and I haven't, I interviewed him back in 2016 or something. I've forgotten all the details, but I remember it was very, very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got to tell you that I probably shouldn't admit this, but a lot of times people have talked to me and said that I'm dense, but I don't think they're talking. We've mentioned dense breasts, and I got to tell you, even after watching the documentary, I'm not really sure what's meant, because a dense breast is not necessarily a fatty breast, and I'm getting. So, could you explain what is meant by a dense breast?
So dense means it's high in fibroglandular tissue, and young women tend to have a lot of that in their breasts, and we're supposed to get more fatty as we get older. But I swear, every woman I talk to, they're all saying, I have dense breasts. I'm like, who are these people with fat breasts? I don't know who they are. I've never talked to one person. So we're all saying, yeah, we have dense breasts. And then I said, do you know what that means? And they're like, I have no idea. So we're getting told that we have dense breasts, but not that you're 5% more, if you're in the upper echelon, you're 5% more, 5 times more likely to get breast cancer. You should be getting an ultrasound instead of a mammogram, or at least get that before the mammogram. And everything, again, it's just all backwards. We need to flip this thing on its head. And we've been doing this for 50 years now. You think we would, somebody would be saying something about this. I was surprised there wasn't a good documentary out there covering this. So,
Is that something a woman can do through self-examination? Can she determine if she has dense breast tissue or not? Is it something to the touch that they can determine?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
That's maybe extremely dense. So if you're fatty, obviously you probably could. But that's no, I don't think so. I've never heard that. So I should be quiet.
So how are they determined? What is the test that shows dense breast tissue?
Mammography.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is one area that will show up on a mammogram. But they also say at the same time, we can't see the cancer. We're going to have to radiate the patootie out of this breast, and they're not telling the woman that. They're just pushing the button more. We have no idea that they just up the radiation 3, 4, 5 times, and then or they'll send you away and say, we see something suspicious on your mammogram, and then you go through 2 weeks of pure hell. And they bring you back for another mammogram, radiate you again, and then they say, oh, you just have dense breasts. We couldn't see it.
Is there any way to prove that a woman's breast cancer was caused from her getting the radiation from the mammograms?
I don't think that there really is. There's just a heck of a lot of speculation. The statistics are 1 in 1,400 women that are screened by mammography, they're going to find a cancer. And National Cancer Institute says theoretically, statistically, 1 in 1,000 women will get induced breast cancer from radiation from a mammogram. So I call it the wash. You're helping 1 in 14 women, but you're giving cancer probably to 1 in 1,000. And that,
when you say that 1 in 14, isn't there also a stat in your documentary that says of the 1 in 14, it's something like 1 in 10 women are being treated for a cancer that they may not actually have?
so
Or did I get that stat wrong?
that might be on, was that DCIS, the pre-cancer?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So yeah, DCIS is 25%. It's ductal carcinoma in situ. It's a pre-cancer, and it represents 25% of breast cancers. And I had never heard of it before. I ran into a friend of mine who said, she said, oh, you're doing a film on breast cancer. I had both of my breasts removed because I have stage 0 DCIS. I'm like, what? Stage 0? They're making up new stages. They've run out of stages. So they decided it was better to recommend, because they can't figure out if DCIS is going to spread or not, to just take everybody's breasts off. It's crazy. And that actually, that whole paradigm is starting to flip over now, because thank God there's a Dr. Esserman out of UC San Francisco is coming out and saying, no, we got to look at this thoroughly. This is crazy. They're over-treating women. And that was one of the big things they came down on. About 10 years ago, they changed the schedule for mammograms from every year to every other year in some age groups.
Right.
That was because of this overdiagnosis in DCIS mostly, and also the radiation-induced cancers and other problems with it. But they decided, you know, we're actually harming as many women as we're helping. That's what the literature really points to. And I don't think women got that during that whole discussion. That's why they decided to go to every other year. So it's like we're hedging our bets, you know.
Yeah. Joe, in your line of work, you work almost exclusively with doctors and trying to educate doctors into what's going on. So when you have the mammogram or you have these alternative ways of checking for the breast cancer, are you finding that, generally speaking, the doctors are agreeable to making the change, or are the doctors kind of rooted in their training and don't want to move? And then how do the insurance companies fit into that discussion?
It all comes down to what they talked about in the documentary, and that's standard of care. Standard of care, if they don't go by the approved standard of care, you know, they have liability issues that they're afraid of. If they don't go by the approved standard of care, they can't bill the insurance companies. So no, you can't bill an insurance company for thermography, okay? But then that's why people are shying away. They're going with the standard of care, which is do a mammogram. If you find something, you cut, burn, or poison. Okay, you cut it out, you radiate it, or you do it with chemotherapy and you poison it. So the doctors I work with, for the most part, 20 years ago, it was a battle every day. Right now, there's more and more that are looking towards, you know, not doing these invasive therapies and using these invasive technologies. They're looking towards helping to do it from the body side, inside out, you know, allow the body's functionality to perform the way it's supposed to. And, you know, I don't know if you realize this or not, Megan, but in the root cause of cancer, all cancer, was discovered in 1932. Did you know that? Dr. Otto Warburg. He won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1932. And the root cause of cancer is oxygen deprivation, period. So we already know what causes it. You know,
Right.
we're
So
just,
if a woman,
instead of,
I was going to say, if a woman has breast cancer, then why don't they just shoot oxygen in there?
ozone therapy is one of the more common alternatives right now, using ozone therapy, which is oxygen, whether they do it intravenously, whether they do it in an oxygen chamber. Those are both ways of doing it. There is a nutrient, Megan, I don't know if you're aware of this, called dimethylglycine. DMG, dimethylglycine, has had 3 patents over the year, and that's very unusual for a dietary supplement. But one of them was its ability to fight cancer by promoting oxygen utilization at the cellular level. So there are a lot of alternatives for your and they're just not getting the press. You know,
they are in Europe. In Europe, they talk about this stuff a lot, but
yes.
You know, even they're starting to feel pressure from big medicine. When I went over to interview people over there, I thought doors were going to be wide open, and they're like, no, go away. We don't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're even feeling the pressure. UK shutting down everybody. It's really terrible.
Okay, you guys have done research in this, so you know what you're talking about, but I'm having a hard time visualizing here. How do you inject oxygen?
Go, Joe.
It's almost like it's very similar to using an intravenous hydrogen peroxide. It's a hydrogen peroxide molecule, usually combined with something like glutathione, which is the body's master antioxidant, or could be some other things like that. They are combined with it, but it is very similar to a hydrogen peroxide intravenous treatment.
Now, how long does something like that take?
I'm sorry? How long?
How long does something like that take? I mean, is it like sitting down for hours hooked up to an IV machine?
No, less than an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, 20 to 40 minutes. I've had ozone therapy myself. and it's intravenous, and you just sit there and you feel great after, and you're oxygenated. It's like you've been in an oxygen chamber. It's really great. But the thing is that you can, these things are available. They're not covered by insurances. They're not the standard of care. Okay, accepted by the medical associations and the insurance companies. So what we're going to do is continue giving money to Susan G. Komen and let her continue to whatever that foundation does. I have no idea, because they've been around for 20 years and rates are still going up. Deaths are still going up. They're not stopping anything. So I really don't know what they're doing.
Well, there was a story in the news just yesterday that the Komen Foundation is closing all of its local offices. They're going to basically just work out of their main office in Dallas, and all of the local offices are closing down. Now, I don't know if that's because of the Wuhan virus going around, or if that's just a business restructuring. But you got to think something's in the works if they just up and close everything nationwide on that.
It's probably because the National Football League, has no attendance and they're not wearing pink this year. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah, the Komen website was just full of wrong information. I found one good white paper study that I quote a lot of which must have slipped by them. But the rest of the information was just wrong that they're giving women. And to find out about breast density, you have to dig.
Right.
It's pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. I want to just interject one more thing, Fiora, if I can. I uncovered a study. Actually, a colleague of mine did, and I tried to make it as widely known as I could. But in 2018, there was a study done at the California Pacific Medical Center. It was funded by the National Institute of Health, partly, and they were looking for ways to prevent, slow down, or stop breast cancer from moving into metastasis. And they already knew that there was a protein called the ID1 protein, ID-1, that was responsible for regulating this. And they found they had certain things they could do in mice that would downregulate this protein. It wasn't working in humans. So they were looking for other things. How they actually came about the nutrient, I'm not sure. But they started experimenting with CBD. Not medical marijuana, just the all-natural hemp-derived CBD.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that CBD downregulated the ID1 protein. This should have been front-page news everywhere. Susan G. Komen says nothing about it. It's not anywhere in the news. And this study was published 2 years ago in October. So I have a copy of this article. I'd be happy to send it to you if you like.
I'd love to see it.
I got to jump in here because Zoom is sending me little tags saying that we're running fast out of time. And before we do, Megan, I want to get back to your movie. As a normal practice, I don't really like it when directors insert themselves into their own films. But you actually did this in your documentary. You actually went through the thermography screening, and you reveal quite candidly in the documentary that there were some warning signs on that you drastically changed. You lost 15 pounds. Can I say that? I guess I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
You lost 15 pounds. You got put onto a different type of workout regimen, and you added supplements and everything. And then the second one came out much, much better. There's a big gap there. I need to know, what were the supplements that they gave you to help this along?
Oh gosh. Well, I went I went to a holistic doctor, and she, I was on 3 medications. When I went on the third one, which was because of a side effect from the second one, I said, this is going down a bad road. I'm not that old. And so I went to her, and I didn't say I want to go off these meds. I just said, help. And so she actually used electric medicine machine, this quantum. A quantum is complicated. And anyway,
right.
She used the thing, and she said, okay, you need this, you need that, you need this. And over the next couple months, all of a sudden, one by one, I didn't need those medications anymore, because like my blood pressure evened out and other things evened out, and my stomach acid went away. It just gone. And I said, well, wow, I wasn't expecting that. What was I on? She put me on pancreatic enzymes, digestive enzymes. Those are probably the big ones. And then other things, I don't know, vitamins and, all that good stuff.
And that's the
D3.
thing that helped you out, huh?
Yeah, and boy, and then I was surprised when I went back in for my thermography, and they said, yeah, you've got your breast inflammation has like died down.
Yeah, there was a big change when you could see it on the documentary.
I wasn't
Yes,
gonna,
I would love to talk about this a whole lot more, but Zoom is really getting bent out of shape here. Apparently, we've hit our time limit. The name of the documentary is Boobs: The War on Women's Breasts. There are some really interesting things in here, and we didn't even get to talk about the bras. There it is. The whole thing in the documentary says that bras can be detrimental, and that women should only wear bras for 8 hours a day max.
yeah,
I'm okay with that. I think that's fine.
don't sleep in them.
Folks, I want to thank you very much. Joe, thank you for stopping by. Megan, real nice to talk to you. I wish you a lot of luck with this documentary. And, it doesn't hurt men to watch this either, because there's a lot of useful information.
Men can get breast cancer too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we'll be back with more right after this. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Megan Smith, director of this documentary, and Joe Messino for stopping by and talking about this. It's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and some of the new things that they're doing and that are revealed in this documentary are really quite eye-opening, and you wonder if it's just, the whole medical and insurance apparatus is just too big to allow some of these new innovations to come through. Here is a look at the documentary Boobs: The War on Women's Breasts.
Mammography is a suboptimal test.
A hospital spends $1 million on this mammogram machine, so they want their return on their investment.
Mammogram can miss up to 40 to 60% of breast cancer.
It misses cancers that we wish it would find.
Half of all cancers that actually exist.
It finds some cancers that we call overdiagnosis cancers.
From a mammogram, they found calcification and said I had DCIS. So then I had the mastectomy.
Radiology and radiation, that comes with a price.
I worked together with the radiologists and I saw how often the results were wrong.
We know that mammograms don't work.
The information has not been full and fully disclosed.
There's massive disinformation campaigns. The drug companies actually hire writers to create disinformation.
A lot of the research data, a lot of the professional articles have been manipulated for the sake of money.
Years ago, mammography was not regulated. The FDA stepped in and set guidelines.
If we know that an FDA guy now is one of the corporate people over on some drug company's board, what is that telling you? It's telling you a lot. The docs are being paid by the pharmaceutical companies, so it's just absolute conflict of interest.
Why do we need to radiate women first and then we do a more accurate test?
That's why all these docs hide behind. It's not the standard protocol. They are covered from a lawsuit.
That's why we have people doing tests that aren't needed and covering all their bases.
We believe that patients supposed to have a choice. It's my body, it's my health, it's my life.
I don't look at myself because it's so ugly, but it's done, so there we go.
We need better tests.
We need a better test.
Boobs: The War on Women's Breasts. This is a pretty interesting view. It moves quickly and it gives you a lot of information that will be beneficial. So what more could you ask out of a documentary? I want to thank once again director Megan Smith for coming by and talking with us, and also Joe Messino for adding his input as well. I should tell you that if you would like to see this documentary, Boobs: The War on Women's Breasts, it is streaming on Vimeo. You can check it out there. You can also go to the website, which is boobsdoc.com. That's boobsdoc, DOC.com. Now, if you'd like to purchase this documentary, perhaps have it for discussion groups or family and friends, you can do so on Amazon. So once again, you can buy it on Amazon, you can stream it on Vimeo, and you could also check it out on boobsdoc.com. It's good stuff in there, stuff to pay attention to. Now that you have learned what you have learned, here endeth your lesson.